people need to understand marketing takes time and not every single campaign is going to be a home run off the bat. Even though you're leveraging the influence and likeness and maybe even the audience of said creator, it just takes time for people to understand your product, your service, your offering.
Welcome back to Social Media for Social Impact, the podcast where we explore how digital creativity and storytelling can inspire real change. Today, I'm joined by Justin Johnson, whose career spans some of the most influential corners of the creator economy, from driving partnerships at Meta to building cultural relevance at Acorns and beyond. What stands out about Justin isn't just the brands he's worked with, but his perspective on creators. In this conversation, we'll unpack what real impact looks like in the influencer space, how AI is reshaping the industry, and what it takes for creators to go from clicks to monetization. Justin, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, Misha, I'm excited to have a conversation. I know it's been a while since we last spoke virtually, and then even been longer since I was last in LA for an in-person conversation, but a lot has happened and a lot continues to change in that time and over time now. And to your point on the introduction, which I thank you for, I've been very fortunate in my career to have a front row seat in the driver's seat at these very notable and reputable brands and companies that I've been able to work with and work for, specifically within the marketing and even more specifically in the creator function, to grow the brand and grow the business through cultural relevance and integration across different IPs and different talents. And so it's been a journey, still a long way to go, but I'm happy to double click into anything you would deem relevant, both for your own curiosities and maybe even the audience as well.
Thank you so much, Justin. I know we go way back. We've known each other several years now, and I've been following your journey, and we've been having conversations in different capacities in different spaces. And what always stands out to me is how you've had such an interesting path into the creator space. What's the story you would like to tell our audience about how you first found your way into this world of the creator economy and digital marketing in general?
So back in 2000, I started to realize the influence that at the time vloggers were having on YouTube. And then slowly came the world of Vine, which is essentially like modern day TikTok as we know it. And seeing that world transpire and transform from 2016 onward, I realized very quickly that this was going to be a segment of the wider media world where individuals would have voices and platforms and presence on these platforms, and more importantly, influence. And understanding that early on, I realized I need to be in some way, shape, or form in this world. And that's exactly what I did. So at the time, I was in Austin working at Facebook with small businesses, and then switched over to entertainment clients, specifically within the music industry, and started to see the trend of artists and musicians leveraging their online presence to promote touring, merchandise, meet and greets, giveaways, etc. And within that, I was very interested in figuring out, like, how could I effectively work with these types of individuals, influencers or creators, and get paid to do that? And how could I do that at Facebook? So there came an opportunity for me to move from Texas to Los Angeles to help start and focus on content creators for Facebook and get the top YouTubers onto the Facebook platform. Now, this is 2018, so it's very early on still. And having that opportunity fundamentally shifted how I viewed creators or influencers, more so as entrepreneurs and business owners and media empires, and mixing and mashing the three vital roles that these platforms would play at the success or failures of these individuals and groups. And so a mix of positive thinking and affirmation, but also luck and timing played a part, where it just so happened there was a role and team opening up that was going to be solely focused on content creators and getting their content from YouTube onto Facebook. And I got to be fortunate enough to be part of that landing team in LA back in 2018. And you fast forward to now, my career spanned from Facebook and Instagram to MoonPay, which is a Web3 company, and then more recently a fintech subscription company at Acorns. And creators have followed along my journey, and vice versa. I've also followed these creators through my journey and brought in different creators along the way to help grow brands and help grow businesses through the influence and distribution that these individuals have.
That's so fascinating. And I know you've worked with some of the big names in the industry. I would love to chat more about that. But I also want to know, you've worked across different corners of the creator economy. It sounds, from platforms to financial tech to partnerships with big cultural names. Looking back, what's been the through line in your work?
I would say the one common thread that stands true, regardless of company, regardless of role that I was in at that given company, is people. And having the good fortune and privilege to work alongside talent, their managers, their agents, their teams, to have a very aligned reason and incentive, whether it was monetary or distribution to get extra eyeballs or whatever it was, to partner with X company. And in those moments and in the experiences that I've had over the last, decade plus of working in the industry, there's been a lot of lessons that have come to play. There's been a lot of what works well, what also doesn't work well, and what I haven't learned that could work well. And at the core of it, the human thread to make things happen or not happen is a constant reminder that opportunities truly are in people. And then all the other things, whether it's tech or content, etc., follow through after. But at the end of the day, like, people are dealing with people.
The keyword being people. I love this perspective because we often talk about the differences between traditional media or advertising and the work that creators in the space can do. So when we're thinking about culture holistically, how do you think creators shape culture differently than traditional media or advertising ever could?
I think this is a great question. I think now we're seeing it more mainstream and it has become the norm. So more recently, you've seen the streamathons that Kai Cenat has done, streaming live every day for an entire month. And then similarly, but different, MrBeast has gone on this tour across America, essentially streaming wherever he's going and wherever he's at, engaging with fans, businesses, communities, and just showing the fandom that people have for him. But a direct experience that comes to mind earlier in my career is Kai Cenat mention that I just had, and then similarly with MrBeast, was actually with the Nelk voice. And this was in 2000, I want to say. And the Nelk voice, if you're not familiar, essentially got their start on YouTube, a group of Canadian guys doing social experiments and pranks, right? You fast forward to 2021, they're launching a hard seltzer in a category of alcohol beverage that has largely not been disrupted. You have the big players, and they essentially own the market share and wallet for the likes of White Claw, for example, and some other competitor brands. But there's no real disruption, let alone any creator that has a footprint that would stand among the ranks of the top seltzer. So it's 2021, they're releasing their seltzer in Texas and launching in Texas. I happen to be based in Texas, so I went up to Austin at the time when they were launching in Texas, the Happy Dad. And that was the first time in my life where I got to see online fandom translate to IRL or offline experience. I've been around musicians and artists and athletes, people who are on TV all the time, music videos, etc. But I hadn't been around a group or an individual YouTuber where they were able to just draw in so much excitement and foot traffic in Austin from the UT Austin college community, that when we were doing these meet and greets at these different locations throughout the campus area and throughout the city of Austin, you had thousands of individuals that were influenced by this group who would just either post on Snapchat or tweet where they were going to be. And then the fans showed up and then the product sold out. And seeing these moments and experiences was pretty eye-opening for me to realize it's bigger than a YouTube channel. It's bigger than a video that is cut and distributed across social. And I think now, going back to the examples that I gave with Kaisen and I Show Speed, we're even seeing that in other categories and other YouTubers and content creators, where there's one example more recently at the Mall of America where this one particular female launched a beauty product at the Mall of America, and 70 something thousand fans showed up, which was almost double the amount of individuals that showed up when MrBeast had a pop up there.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable where the fandom goes beyond the screen of a laptop or a cell phone.
Absolutely. And I love that you bring up this example because one of the themes on the show is social impact, right? So when we talk about defining impact, clearly you've worked on partnerships that reach millions of people. When you define impact, is it cultural relevance? Is it measurable behavior change? Or to you, is it something else?
It's a mix of those two categories, but I think it also is dependent on both the individual creator as well as maybe even the partnering company. What comes to mind in capacities that I've worked in, it's largely to drive a conversion, either a product adoption or a checkout or purchase of a subscription. But on the contrary, there's also other opportunities to drive change beyond just the cash register or the point of sale, meaning there's some creators recently that did a live stream, I think MrBeast, Mark Rober, and a few others, where they raised the largest amount of money ever raised on a live stream, and all that money went to provide people with clean water. And it would provide years of water for X millions of people that, had they not done that effort, wouldn't have happened. But on the business front, at the end of the day, there's cultural relevance that's driven in partnering with a talent or creator, right? Because it gives you brand association and affinity. But even beyond that, what are the business metrics that businesses are going to care about? Because these businesses are in business to profit at the end of the day. And how do you align the objectives and goals based on the deliverables that are requested and required of these creators?
Amazing example. We talk a lot about profit and purpose and how these two aren't mutually exclusive, and seeing these creators use their platforms to drive causes like clean drinking water, but also making sure they're aligning with the business goals is so key and really the bane of my existence when I talk about companies and creators doing good while doing well for themselves and businesses. So I feel like there are a lot of misconceptions. And one of the reasons the podcast is here today is because there are a lot of myths around influencers and creators, and a lot of stuff even us as marketers still get wrong. So when you think about influencer marketing today, what do you feel people still don't get right about it?
People need to understand, like, marketing takes time, and not every single campaign is going to be a home run off the bat. Even though you're leveraging the influence and likeness and maybe even the audience of said creator, it just takes time for people to understand your product, your service, your offering. Whereas if they do an individual post, maybe the post performs wildly successful over benchmark, or maybe it doesn't. But I don't think that's a end all be all litmus test that the partnership was a failure or the creator can't move product. It's really an iterative and learning environment that is more, it should be more than just a transaction, right? And
Right.
again, it's not to discount and say, obviously there, if you're contracting out an influencer to promote your brand or promote your service, etc., there is monetary exchange that occurs. So that's there. So don't pretend like it's not. But I think more importantly, it's how do you cut through the noise? How do you give the power to the creator to not lose their voice when they're trying to explain whatever it is that you're paying them to do, and doing it in a way that's engaging and authentic to themselves and their audience, and making sure that it just aligns across the board where the creator feels good, the brand feels good, and consequently that should be seen in the results that are driven by the campaign.
Absolutely. As someone personally who's built out influencer marketing programs and campaigns across industries, I've seen this over and over. The good thing is we have a lot of tools nowadays that help us streamline some of the processes that would take much more time manually. I've personally learned a lot by working across industries and understanding how influencer marketing is different from the entertainment world to nonprofits to being in the education space. And I know you've also been working across industries. So, what are some takeaways from those influencer partnerships, and how did you manage to make it successful across industries and also not make it feel just transactional?
This takes me back to the earlier point I made around the common thread being people, and bringing that forth in how I've approached these cross industry, cross vertical partnerships, whether with brands or with talent. It's putting the other person at the center of everything, understanding their needs, their wants, their what they don't like, and trying to adapt accordingly to that, for them, with them, and seeing how can we make this a win-win-win across the board for all involved. But at its core, it's a lot of relationship building between the partnering party as well as the company.
And that's so key, the relationship building. We've talked a lot about the campaigns and the creators you've worked with. And if you're at the liberty to share, I would love to hear some examples of who you work with in times where it's just been challenging to work with certain big names in the industry, and how do you overcome those situations?
Yeah, some of the examples I can allude to and I guess name drop for who I've had the opportunity to work with throughout my career ranges from the likes of MrBeast, Theo Von, Andrew Schultz, Michelle Obama and her brother, and then up and coming creators and talent who are now household names like the likes of Adam W., who's a very big online comedian across platform, the Nelk voice who I alluded to earlier way back when. And that's just a small snippet of the larger sample that I've been fortunate to have the opportunity to work with. So, as I mentioned, the through line of doing what I've done has been people, and that's been the great part of it. Now, the challenging aspect is I'm dealing with people, and everyone is so different. And communicating that, oftentimes having to meet people where they're at, either through platform, maybe they want a text only or email only or phone call only, or they only want a WhatsApp or whatever it may be, and really adapting to where they want to be met. But then I think at the end of the day, from what I've learned and how I've operated, it's people just want to be heard and listened to, and using mirroring techniques to just repeat exactly what was said to make sure it either makes sense or oftentimes doesn't. And then having a dialogue and realizing, look, at the end of the day, dealing with people, but everyone has their needs, their wants, their goals, and how do we align accordingly to where people feel at least content and happy with what they've agreed and aligned to. But it is challenging because sometimes there's more than one opinion in a room to make a decision, or sometimes there's ego involved, or sometimes there's brand competitors that you need to take into account that weren't there before, or competing offers, things of that sort. So there's a lot of factors at play, but at the end of the day, I've really kept top of mind. We're all human. We're dealing with humans. So I tried to not forget to be human first.
I love that. And I can attest to that, having known you for several years now. We've talked a lot about the importance of emotional intelligence, and pioneered by Daniel Goldman. I talk about his book, Emotional Intelligence 2.0, all the time, because I feel like it's such an important reminder of we are in digital marketing, but we are in this space where we need to make sure we understand how to regulate our own emotions, how to manage others. And especially if you're working with people, big names in the industry, you want to make sure that things are done in the right way, and you are constantly learning how to build those relationships over time. One of the things, Justin, that I really want to talk about today with you is how AI has changed the landscape for you? Because very much on the opposite side of the spectrum of building authentic relationships is how AI is evolving and even creating AI generated influencers. So, very high level, what excites you most about the shifts in AI and what concerns you?
I think what excites me most is it's gonna allow for individuals to become AI experts who probably weren't very technical before, right? So
Mhm.
what does that mean and what does that allude to? I think there's a huge opportunity just to understand the right ways and to ask certain questions to get answers that maybe others don't think about asking properly. There's also this idea too where you have SEO for search engine optimization. I think you'll have similar with AI for answer engine optimization. So if you can get really good at understanding that, there's an opportunity that is going to be very lucrative to many businesses. And if you have that skill set, you can help fill a void, and then you can also monetize that as well to have businesses pay for your skill set and experience and just understanding something that's so new that many people don't. I think some of the challenges would be what we've seen in the headlines and news, right? And some of these learning machines using other people's IP without their permission and making money off of that when they're selling access to subscription or whatever it was or is. And so I think there's a lot that can be done to protect those who have put their heart and soul into creating content. And again, content could be books, articles, thought pieces, blogs, white papers, etc., music, whatever it may be. And within that, the laws and rules and regulations are still to be written and defined, but there's also use cases in which, like many technology that exists, where there's always going to be a group of people trying to exploit and find the loopholes to do wrong and scam. I think about that a lot, like how easy it could be to basically feed a script to a GPT and have it pretend and sound exactly like someone it's not. So there's still a lot to be done and learned, but I'm more optimistic than pessimistic about it because I definitely use AI in my day-to-day life, both inside and outside of work.
Absolutely. I appreciate you bringing up the kind of new SEO game that we're dealing with now. So, geo generative engine optimization is really what we're seeing now, right? So, optimizing content to be visible in AI powered search engine. And it's definitely changing the SEO game completely. But I also agree with you that AI levels the playing field for not only creators, but for people to be using skills, even if they're not the most tech savvy or technical experts to begin with. So it's really allowing us to be at the forefront of giving people opportunities. I know you and I, based on our conversations, were passionate about serving marginalized or underserved communities and giving them opportunities as well. And that's been one of the common themes that we've connected over. And a lot of the listeners of the podcast may not be working with huge creators. They may not have the marketing budgets or even the reputation of a huge brand or platform like Meta. So, what is your advice for people who are working with smaller marketing budgets that may not be able to attract big creators to start tapping into the power of the creator economy? What's the first piece of advice?
I would say budgets aside, notoriety aside of having to work with the big names, if you really want to understand the space, either become a creator yourself or just offer your time, skill, expertise to maybe a creator you follow or you really like or you really want to help would
Mhm.
be the guidance and recommendation I would have or give to someone that's eager and hungry to learn and do more within the space.
Amazing. There is really so much there, right? Nonprofits tapping into influencer marketing and some causes, schools trying to create more awareness. And there's so many fantastic causes out there that could truly benefit from having influencers be more involved. But it's to us marketeers to demystify, okay, influencer marketing doesn't have to be a huge campaign done with a huge name. You can start by either leveraging people who already are content creators within your organization. We're seeing a lot of organizations rely heavily on their employees and just really looking at the existing voices in their organization. And I think that's truly powerful time and powerful situation to be in now. Was there a moment in your career that really shifted how you think about creators and their power to shape culture?
Yeah, I think another example that comes to mind is having worked with an array of talent, both big and small. And this takes me back to Facebook days working with creators there. And one of them happened to be a comedian that was getting tons of views on all platforms, wasn't really doing the same on Facebook, but had a presence there. Long story short, in working with them and their team over the course of a few months, they became a millionaire on Facebook exclusively while still monetizing on their other channels outside of Facebook. And I think seeing that was very eye-opening and also motivating that if they can do it, others likely could follow suit as well. And so having that opportunity to work hand in hand, to learn the ins and outs, to give them strategy and guidance, and see them execute against that and then reap the benefit of it was truly rewarding. And then once we started getting press out there on this individual and others similar who were monetizing, the narrative sort of spoke for itself that if you're a creator, you can also be a creator on the Facebook platform and monetize where you hadn't been able to before historically.
I'd love to hear a little more about the current platforms rising and if you have creators you're working with on TikTok and what your take is on how that is evolving.
I would say the platforms that I'm most bullish on are as follows. YouTube, by and far, I believe, is the golden standard of creating video content and monetizing that. They hold the top spot because they've essentially been the golden standard for a decade plus whenever AdSense rolled out. But some of these more, what I'll just define as emerging platforms or competing platforms, as you mentioned, TikTok, I think newsletters as well. So think of Substack. A combination of those could lend itself to be very lucrative and strategic and valuable to have a direct point of contact to your audience as opposed to relying on an algorithm to serve the posts in their feed and go viral. In the US, TikTok is still one of the few platforms where there is the best chance to go viral. If you're creating and establishing a presence, it would be a matter of just finding your voice, finding your audience, finding the content type that suits your voice for whatever the niche you're going after is, and then refine accordingly. This idea of newsletter is one that businesses have done for the longest time because you sign up for their loyalty and you get the coupons and heads up of when whatever is going to be launching. It's a newer muscle to be flexed for non-writer creators. Basically, if you weren't a journalist, you probably didn't have a newsletter already. So this provides another avenue to diversify audience, income, and distribution.
100%. Newsletters are making a comeback. And even as I'm building the podcast, one of the things I keep reading over and over is the importance of having a newsletter and just being able to spread the message out there. So as a starting content creator myself, I'm seeing that. And with my clients, I'm also seeing this return to email newsletters and which platforms are best to use. And like you said, tapping into the loyalty. Now, you've been at the forefront of some of the most viral campaigns. I would love to hear your take on what you believe are the ingredients for making a campaign, quote unquote, go viral.
Going viral is hard. That's why everyone wants to do it. But I think the campaigns that are out there that have gone viral, it displays some characteristics that I think could potentially be mirrored and duped, but not necessarily guarantee the results. Would be a mix of rawness and realness of the storytelling or relatability, right? When I think about content that goes viral, it typically falls into two buckets. This is oversimplifying it, but this is how I look at it. So you have content that's really funny and relatable or skit based, and you can think of it, the likes of Drewski, for example, who's a very big prank creator, comedian, etc. He does content that goes viral consistently, but there's a theme that he follows, and it's a recipe that works well for him and his audience, and it works. And then other content that tends to go viral is probably more on the what I'll call touchy-feely side that really strikes ethos and emotion. And that's more of the feel-good or the sad story, but there's some sort of storyline that's being followed, and you're hoping for good in the end. Maybe a dog gets hit by a car, someone gets really sick, the dog survives the car accident, the sick person becomes unsick, whatever it may be. Those are the kind of, in the simplest form of way, kind of how I look at it. Obviously, there's more content types and factors that go into doing so. But then I think the recipes that could be extracted from it is just, again, like the relatability, the rawness, the realness, the human element that evokes emotion and people can get behind. And so again, like this tugging at the hearts or making people smile or laugh, those are moments that people rarely forget.
Absolutely. And if we think of Duolingo and how they use entertainment and humor to make their campaigns go viral, if you think about the ad council, how they use a lot of emotions in their campaigns to really drive awareness around societal issues, I feel like those are perfect ingredients and examples. And to your point, there's logistical things involved like trending audio on TikTok and making sure that you're jumping on the bandwagon if there's a trending topic happening related to your brand, because sometimes brands just go off track, right? And they want to leverage any moment, any popular cultural moment to give their opinions. But I agree with you, just the part and motive, sparking emotion is so important. And it, again, goes back to the role that creators play, not just in marketing, but in driving social cultural change. So looking 5 years ahead, what big changes do you see in terms of creators playing a role in social or cultural change? Or ideally, what is a change you'd love to see?
The barrier to entry to become a creator now is so low. If you effectively have a cell phone, you can become a creator. So that puts the power of being able to be a creator truly in the hands of individuals all across the world. The change I would like to see would just be if there's a way for, no matter how big or small your following is, a true way to monetize that likeness or that IP. I know there's been some talk with leveraging Web3 and building things on chain and being able to sell rights or access through tokenization of certain things. I just think there's so much more that could be tapped into to give people the tools and infrastructure and resource that someone that has 0 followers could have the potential to earn from not having followers in an alternative world that I kind of look at in the distant future. Because it makes you reshape the thinking and the ideology behind what does influence actually mean. Seeing more and more efforts towards for good instead of just for profit are things that I would love to see out in the world. And again, we've gotten a taste of that from some of these larger creators. But when you think about the power of the people and the power of influence and the power of influential people, that's the lens I'm looking at things through, of how can you just leave this world a better place than you found it? It's a lot easier said than done. But I think collectively there truly is power in numbers, and how does that translate out into respective categories in the real world that we live in beyond just the cell phones and laptop screens?
I so appreciate you bringing that up, because one of the issues we see in the creator economy space is the income disparity. So the top 1% of creators earn more than 90% of the revenue across platforms. And you, as someone who's worked on the other side of it, on the platform, you've seen probably some of this inequality where, to your point, a lot of creators are working tirelessly, not seeing a lot of financial reward. So I feel like this perspective coming from you is so powerful because you've been in multiple seats and you've seen the challenges of the power imbalance between the platform and creator, if you will. We share this common interest in empowering just individuals, but content creators in their journeys to become financially independent entrepreneurs. I see it in the classroom where I want to empower my students and give them the skills and resources to build either a living as a content creator or someone working in digital media. We need those voices more than ever. We need people who care about these causes and who care about the creators and not only see them as a lucrative means to an end or a transactional agreement, but as something that truly has power to change the world. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Justin, is there anything I didn't ask or we didn't cover that you'd like to share with the audience today?
Oh, we covered quite a bit. I think in parting, the words that I'll just bestow on the listeners would be whatever it is that you're seeking to do or wanting to do or wanting to try to do, not to steal from Nike, but just do it. I think the hardest part about doing anything is just doing the thing, whatever the thing is, and getting started, right? And so sometimes in the space of creativity, you're your own worst critic and biggest blocker between inaction to action. So getting out of your own way is a very important thing to practice day in and day out, both at work or even in life or in your creative endeavors. That's the one thing I think about just from conversations I've had both recently and over time is you don't want to be the coulda, woulda, shoulda, but didn't because you chose not to, which can be a similar decision to chose to do.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And it's advice I give clients, my students, my friends, everyone in the community. Just if you don't try, if you don't do it, you're never going to know what results it could yield. So thank you so much for taking the time to share your wisdom and expertise with our listeners. To our listeners out there, I hope this conversation sparked some ideas about how we define impact in the digital age and think about every campaign or partnership and reminding ourselves that there's always a bigger question about what kind of culture we're building and how we're building relationships with those creators. So if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow Social Media for Social Impact wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're in this space yourself, whether as a creator, brand, or simply a curious listener, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how social media can be used for good. Until next time, thanks for tuning in.